In a recent Instagram post, you kind of had a little thought on why American males have historically underperformed at
Yeah,
UTMB, especially in recent years. And I think it actually kind of ties into the current state of affairs in the U.S. and where people are
yeah,
training, and also this angle you've mentioned of as the sport matures more, athletes need to be more specialized. They need to
yeah,
like go
yeah,
all in on a
absolutely. Yeah,
particular geography, on a particular distance to be successful. And that's what
yeah, yeah.
happens when any sport matures.
Yeah. So I think we saw this summer, a bunch of American athletes try to do a double with Western States and TMB.
Yeah.
And those races are farther apart than Western States and Hard Rock. And uh, Francois was able. I think there was a female athlete, I think, who was also able to. Am I crazy? Plays high at Hard Rock, plays high at
Yes.
UTMB.
Yes. Oh gosh. I'll add it to the show notes.
Yeah, Francois was able to pull that double off at least, and then on a shorter timeline than Western States and UTMB. And I'm certainly not the first person to say this, but I think it's just because those races are just more similar, very similar. Uh, vertical gain.
Mm.
Both are, Hard Rock I think is less runnable than UTMB is, but I think
Yep.
kind of similar. A lot of single
Yep.
track, some
Yep.
some grassy bits and some steeper stuff. And so I think I personally, I follow a lot of climbing culture. I suck at climbing, but for some reason I've always just been very drawn to climbing. And
Oh, I love the
uh,
alpinist. I'm not a climber either, and I subscribe to it. Like I just love that culture.
yeah, yeah. And I think a fantastic podcast to listen to, especially for trail runners, is Climbing Gold.
Climbing gold.
Um,
Okay.
Alex Honnold, and hosts it with Fitz Cahall. Fitz, I guess, produces or runs the Dirtbag Diary podcast,
Mm.
and it's fantastic. And their big focus is on kind of on the evolution of climbing, and you can kind of think the evolution from when your top climbers were, they were bouldering, maybe some, they were trad climbing, they were maybe doing some alpine climbing, they were sport climbing, they were competing, they were kind of all over the map. And then gradually people started getting more kind of like focused. You had your sport climbers, which is bolted climbing. You had your trad climbers, with your traditional kind of protection, and your kind of alpinists, and your boulderers. And now it's getting even more kind of separated out, whereas the competition scene is breaking off, and they're just basically gym climbing. They're just like climbing plastic. And you have your kind of your outdoor kind of sport climber competitors. So just because the sport has just gotten so enormously competitive, and if you're climbing outdoors and you're kind of dealing with all the factors that apply to climbing outdoors, you can't then compete on the indoor, on the competition scene. And just things have just gotten so focused and incredibly. And then also likewise with boulderers, you're seeing guys who are top boulderers who don't sport climb all that much. They're just focusing on these super short, really athletic, really challenging, short movements.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's going to happen increasingly in trail running. You're already seeing athletes, starting to kind of like break out and focus on longer distances, focusing on shorter distances. I think an athlete, kind of like Max King, I think it's going to become increasingly rare, where they're able to kind of run super well
Yep.
across the board at all these different distances. And I think also you're going to see the same thing with steep and more technical races. You see athletes kind of specialize in running steeper, running more technical races, and athletes specializing in running more runnable stuff. The way it is right now, the scene in the US, especially the major competition circuit, is much more runnable, a little bit flatter. Races like Black Canyon and Western States, Way Too Cool. I mean, those are all extremely runnable courses.
Mm.
And then in Europe, especially like on the sky racing scene, way more technical. Races like UTMB, like we don't have really any we have a couple 100-milers in the US that exceed 30,000 feet of gain. Hard Rock,
Uray, I think Uray 100.
Uray, yeah. But that's kind of it. Whereas, the Diagonal Dave Fu, or
Yeah.
What Dylan just did, that's exceeds exceeds 10,000. It was right around 10,000 meters. UTMB right around 10,000 meters. I'm blanking, but a lot of the, and then certainly once you get down to the shorter races, way higher vert out in Europe. So, if US athletes want to race on that European scene, I think they have to just start focusing on steeper races and more technical stuff. And I think it honestly benefits a slightly different history and body type.
Mhm.
Jim is like incredible, and I think will always surprise
Yes.
at least me by his incredible ability to perform.
I think he wins UTMB one day once he gets this thread we're talking about with becoming more of a specialist for a particular year at least.
Yeah. I mean, and certainly, I don't think this is anything new to him. I mean, he trains out in the San Juans for Hard Rock. He put in that huge block a couple years
It's
ago.
2 weeks after Western, like he needed to be just doing that exclusively.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think, he probably knows that. And
Well, the one thing I
yeah,
wanted to add there is the reference to climbing and how that sport has become more specialized as it matures. And like, I just think I look to road running, for example. You don't hear marathoners just say, I'm a road runner. You hear them say, I'm a marathoner because
yes,
the sport has gotten
yeah,
so specialized. To say you're a road runner is too broad.
yeah,
They're not just, hopping between events. Like, I think that one sign of maturity in our sport is when you stop hearing athletes say, I'm just an ultra runner. You're going to hear them say, I'm a
yeah,
50K mountain runner. I'm a
yeah.
100K road guy. I don't know how far away we are from that, but that to me is a sign of maturity in the sport.
Yeah, and I think another, just totally random, but another kind of aspect of that specificity is like Western States is like it's a much shorter race than
Yes.
UTMB is.
Yes.
And that's I think if there was a race that was very similar, if Western States was instead like the Western States 140, and it took 20 hours for the top athletes to complete,
Yeah.
I think that would be a better training objective for UTMB, just because it's just more time out there. It's more time for things to go wrong. It's more time that you have to have your nutrition dialed. And at UTMB, it's more time for the weather to get really bad. And I know Western States, I really could not imagine worse weather than Western States, it being so hot.
Yeah.
But UTMB, it seems like they always deal with like snow, sleet, rain, high winds, poor visibility,
Yep.
and you
Weird
know
start time.
weird start time. And to many, running at night, and to many extents, like if you are just kind of like this, racehorse who's racing these courses that are getting done during the daytime, less than 15, 16, 17 hours long, and that UTMB experience, I think it's just like that much longer. It's like makes a big difference.